Hi, and welcome to the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. We're your hosts, Kirsty Jandra and Kate Rajba, here to sprinkle a little inspiration, guidance, and magic into your day. Join us as we explore the spiritual journeys of our guests and share stories that uplift and inspire. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive in.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. And this evening it's a very auspicious day. It's Friday the 13th. It's the Goddess Day, and we're joined by the one and only Morgana Sophia, who is a priestess, astrologer, author, coach, and mistress of magic at the Stellar Mystery School. Welcome, my love. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me on today on this incredibly auspicious yet rainy day.
Radiant indeed, and I mean, we're just hoping it will stop before the end of February at the moment here in the UK. But welcome, thank you, my love. And you are a natural born intuitive, and you've spent many lifetimes gathering knowledge for this time on earth as a priestess, a sorceress, a seer, an oracle. And Morgana works with a diverse range of people, including entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, healers, corporate leaders, and she supports them in their spiritual growth and healing. She's also able to activate hidden gnosis within her clients to help them access deeply hidden gifts and talents as they can complete their true will and work in this lifetime. Wow. So welcome, Morgana. Thank you so much. I just wondered if we could just dive in straight away, and really, could you uncover how you basically came to be of service to the goddess, and how you came upon your pathway?
I'll make a very long story incredibly short. So, as a small child, I was quite intuitive. So, I had an imaginary dog called Simon. And it wasn't until I got into my mid-30s that my mother admitted that perhaps that imaginary dog I could actually see. So, I'd always had some kind of abilities, intuitive abilities as a child. They got suppressed. We go through our teenage years. And I found myself getting married vaguely young these years. I guess I was 27 and then went through my Saturn return, and it was incredibly painful and all sorts going on. So as I was kind of turning 30, getting divorced, I ended up being in Glastonbury. And I had a reading and she's like, "Oh, you will be doing what I'm doing here. You need to go and learn how to do healing." I was like, okay, yep, absolutely. I'll go away and do all that. I was really expanding all to my now fiance and said to him, "That's it, I'm done. I'm out. There's something bigger calling me." So I put my notice in on the 6th of January 2020. It's burned into my and all going to go down. Obviously, we went through lockdown as well, but since then, and for the past years, there's been this deep calling to be of. And what I realize now is everything that I have learned, where it's been meditation, being a yoga teacher, kind of becoming a Reiki master, and then dropping a lot of that stuff, and then, really diving into astrology, diving into pathways of goddess, all of it has been stepping stones to where I am today. And it was kind of 2022 when this really deep call came from goddess with I've given you all these tools and now it's time for you to come back to who you are, back to the reason why you are here today, and come and be of service to me. I was like, "Oh, okay, how do I do this?" And then through a series of synchronicities and coincidences, I went for an astrology reading. with a lady called Maria Jones. The next thing I know, I've messaged her and said, oh, by the way, I've signed up for your course. You know, I've paid my deposit. I will see you in March. Brackets. Is that all right with you? And that really got me back onto the pathway to goddess through training to be a priestess astrologer with the Glastonbury Goddess Temple. And suddenly everything just clicked into place. And it was that listening and answering to the call. And as I look back now, I can see how she has been interwoven in all my life, from, you know, the colours of my school uniform, which are the same colours as Ariane, the goddess that I am dedicated into, you know, just tiny little coincidences that have all basically brought me back onto the pathway of goddess, and then making that commitment to dedicate as a sister of the stars, then dedicate as a priestess of the stars, and to live every day in service to her, essentially. So it's a huge change from someone who had been brought up in the Church of England, who had gone through being, you know, been schooled, go to university. I did a law degree, a master's degree. I have a legal practicing certificate, went into the rail industry because decided not to be a lawyer, to suddenly being, oh, by the way, I'm now an astrologer. So it's been this kind of incredibly bumpy at times, incredibly shadow filled at times, but it's this pathway that suddenly, as I look and reflect back from now, it's just been these tiny little bits of interwoven steps that have ultimately brought me back into service for her. So that's what I know that I'm here to do, is to embody her energy, to bring forward the knowledge of the movements of the stars, the planets, to really help us move through what are going to be really interesting times, I feel.
Wow. You're mentioning the goddess, and we know, our astrology, then there is Vedic astrology, but goddess astrology. Can you tell us more, about the goddess astrology? What is it all about?
Of course, yeah. So goddess astrology is the reclamation of the ancient feminine arts of astrology and alchemy. So a huge amount of credit goes to Maria Jones, who teaches the Silver Spiral at the Glastonbury Goddess Temple, who had realised that astrology itself is incredibly patriarchal. And back when all three of us, thousands and thousands of years ago, the turns of the other aeons, we as priestesses, as those in service to Goddess, would have watched the movements of the stars and the planets. They would have been female kind of led art, essentially. And as we've seen the rise of the patriarchy, we've seen them kind of take it away from us. So she really felt called by Goddess to rework astrology, to recognize and to reclaim the goddesses of the planets, so that when we are giving readings, when we're working with these planetary bodies, we see them as goddesses in their own right. So for those of you who follow me on social media, Kirsty's quite aware, we feminize the names of the planets as well, as just an example. So Saturn becomes Saturnia, Mercury becomes Mercuria. So we're really renaming and reclaiming them back, and actually listening to what they have to say, rather than overlaying a structure, which is, if this happens, it means this. Actually, we go into the planet and say, this is currently happening. We think it means this, but actually we're going to listen intuitively to what you have to say. So goddess astrology is the reclamation of these feminine arts of astrology, but it's also deeply intuitive. So when we're looking at charts, be it for the collective or even feeling into the collective energy, it's very much we are intuiting, and also it being encouraged to embody goddess in our everyday lives as well. So it's may have similar interpretations, but it is deeply intuitive, incredibly alchemical, and it tends to be a practice that we focus not just on the good bits of astrology, that we also dive into the shadow, so that we can really help you alchemize that and accept all parts of who you are, in order to move forward on this pathway of the ascension pathway, for the one of a phrase or saying, we're all here to, we're all here to do a job. We're all here to make a difference, and really understanding all aspects of ourselves, the good, the bad, the ugly. We can really move forward into our true will, and our true will is essentially what we're here to do. it is the work, the great work. What is it when we leave this planet? What is the legacy that we're leaving through our great work?
Wow. I love that. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for that description, and for tying in your pathway into that, and what a beautiful narrative, really, of how you look back and saw all the signs and the synchronicities, and yeah, what a beautiful story. So we were talking before we got on air about shadow work, and how beautifully enjoyable it is, but actually how incredibly necessary it is, especially in this moment, and this year. And I love the way you describe goddess astrology as this intuitive process as well, this process of listening and feeling into your gnosis. So how would you say, well, I mean, we all know we're in huge transitory times. We're seeing this dissolution now of all the systems, the paradigms that are essentially not founded upon the vibration, the frequency of love, and harmony, and equanimity, and we are starting to see, although we probably don't see it if we watch the mainstream news, we definitely don't see it there, but there are, I very much believe, and I'm sure we all three of us do, that the foundations of the new earth are energetically starting to be built. So how would you say, Morgana, that the current astrology is supporting this transition? And a big question, how do you see this year playing out? Woo! I mean, sorry, that's such a huge question, but if you could just
I
talk
think it's a
into it.
really, really great question. And it's, how do I see this year playing out? It's going to be a year of ups and downs. I think we can never sugarcoat. I think one of the shadow sides of doing what we do is we often sugarcoat what is going on and just say, oh, it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. Actually, do you know what? It's only going to be fine if we decide to dive into the places where angels fear to tread at times. So we've got some really important kind of aspects coming up as well. We've got a Saturn Neptune conjunction, which is coming up at 0 degrees of Aries. So the last time that happened was the Neolithic times. So we're really going through historical times this year. But what I think we have to remember as well is that whatever we do in astrology, in planting the foundations for New Earth, there is always going to be shadow aspects because we do live in a planet of duality. We can't suddenly go and build a new town, which is going to be completely of a new earth vibration. It has to be how we embody the energy, and a new earth essentially is our embodiment of that frequency and our choice to live in the way that we do, rather than being subsumed back into what I would call the matrix. So 3D matrix, about control, patriarchy, the fifth dimension, if we want to call it, new earth, or as we as astrologers would call it, actually the age of Aquarius, is about embodying the frequencies of collaboration, community, connection. We have to remember, if we're looking at the astrological aeons, so I'm just going to divert slightly into astrological aeons. We're coming up to the end of the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces was very much defined by Yeshua and Magdalene. The highest expression would have been their divine love. Unfortunately, as we all know, that highest expression has been manipulated into control by the patriarchal structures of the church. And other structures are available too. But as we go into the age of Aquarius, so we're very much in the, like I would call, a bridging aeon at the moment. So a cycle is about 2,100 years, but there's always an overlap between the two. So we're very much in the overlap. So we have a choice as to how we want to plant our seeds and what we want to bring forward. So the highest expression of Aquarius, as I said, connection, community, collaboration, realizing that we are all individuals, yet we're within the weave and the web of the whole. shadow side of the age of Aquarius will be technocracy. So, and all that comes into that. So we're seeing that already in things like the Chinese credit, social credit system as well. So implanting these aspects, and this great conjunction is going to be a real foundation for this. We just have to remember is, what do we truly want? While the external world might be asking us to do X, Y, and Z, we have to hold the frequency of the energy within our physical bodies, because we are the change. It's not going to be how I see it is an energetic change. It's not suddenly we're raising cities and building new cities. It's going to be about an energetic frequency, and I can see a distinct split in kind of energies. The people who want to stay in that 3D paradigm, the matrix, those who are choosing to live at a different gnosis, a different level and vibration. Yes, we're going to have these communities that are set up, but for the majority of us in this bridging period, actually, it's how do we hold that frequency within that matrix set up, so that when we get into the future, when, you know, I don't have children, but, you know, our children, grandchildren, great grandchildren are coming into a higher frequency, and that is when we will see the bigger communities being built and everything really changing. But we are the generation that started in order for them, the future. If we decide to come back, I'm a bit iffy about that at the moment. You know, that's what we're building now. So it's a long process. It's not just we're going to wake up the next day and think, I'm in the fifth dimension. We're really planting the energetic seeds, but they will take a couple of generations to really embed in. And we can use the astrology of this year. That's kind of what you've asked me. But when we get to this great conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, by actually thinking about what do we want to bring forward, not just in our lifetime, but in the next kind of 2000-ish years, what is it that we're really seeding? How do we change in order to bring that frequency and anchor that frequency in? And it's going to be a shift from the Magdalene energy to the energy of the Aries woman. And that is what we need to really think about, how we're going to shift from that kind of soft, beautiful Piscean Magdalene energy into Boudica or Buffy, whoever you prefer, you know, that fiery warrior goddess energy. So I probably didn't answer your question, but it's going to be a really important year for planting our seeds and really defining what we want individually, also as a collective as well.
Thank you. You did beautifully answer that, and I really felt that as you were talking, and I really feel that too. It's that it's really about us working on holding centre and really planting those intentional visions for, yeah, I've got an 8-year-old, and yeah, someone asked me the other day about, I do live events, and they said, well, why are you doing this? And I said, honestly, I'm doing this for my daughter. I really am, in their generation, because we're not going to see the changes that we want to see, unfortunately, as much as we would love. But what we can do is lay these foundations. So I love the fact that you've brought that in, and the Aries woman. I love Boudica. We love Boudica.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because she's very Aries woman.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is there anything else you would say this year that will be significant, you know, towards that change? Because, you know, it sounds nice, you know, just planting seeds, but kind of, you know, I'm very pragmatic. So, you know, there's so much happening, you know, with everything coming out. How does that relate to what you're saying? Okay, holding our frequency, but what would you say? You know, there's lots of people that they are light workers, but they're not at the same time. What would you say to them? You know, kind of from more pragmatic, you know, practical way, because it's we're speaking about shadow work. First of all, I would like you to, Morgana, what is the shadow work for you? Because it's like, you know, it's this term is being used so much. What is it actually?
So for me, there are two aspects of shadow. There are the icky aspects that we don't like, you know, what we think about, you know, the aspects of ourselves that, you know, we might think we're a little bit lazy or a little bit greedy or a little bit put in whatever word you want. So that's what people would describe as being the shadow. For me, it's about the unclaimed aspects of self, the good and the bad. So if we look more kind of towards Carl Jung, who really talks about the shadow, it is the integration of all parts of the self back into the whole. And at times that means we have to look at the aspects of ourselves that we don't like, the aspects that trigger us, which are often reflected in other people. However, Kate, there is something else behind the shadow, because the shadow often masks something called the golden shadow as well. So again, this comes from Jung. But the golden shadow is our hidden gifts and hidden talents, which our shadow hides because we are so fearful of accessing who we truly are. We're fearful of, it's the Marianne Williamson, we're fearful of actually finding out. It's not about our shadow that fears us. We're really fearful about finding out how powerful we are. So for me, the shadow is two aspects of the aspects of self which need alchemizing and integrating. But then as we've done that, we ask that to move aside and find actually our hidden gifts and talents. So a really good example that I used this week actually was, you may have loved acting as a child and it wasn't encouraged. So that becomes a golden shadow because it's hidden away, because you're not allowed to do that. You're too much, you're too loud. Don't you dare put on a show. Don't embarrass yourself. Go and do I don't know, geography GCSE rather than drama. That becomes your golden shadow, because when you've learned that that is still within you, you can go and access that and bring that back out, because that is a gift and a talent which ultimately is going to help us discover our true will, but also is another part of ourselves which needs alchemizing and accepting. So it's the good and the what maybe is unpleasant, but at the end of the day, it's all parts of ourselves which have maybe been split away in this lifetime, in other lifetimes. So think of it a little bit like a shadow work is a little bit like soul retrieval. We're kind of picking out the bits that actually we don't really want to look at, but some of the bits we don't want to look at is actually our inherent talent and our inherent power. So that's how I see shadow. It's kind of it's all aspects of ourselves which we repress that actually need to come to the forefront, that need to be integrated, need to be alchemized, so that we can actually be who we truly are at a soul level.
And we're gonna come back to what's happening astrologically, but coming back to the gifts and your gifts, Morgana. And I mean, law degree and now astrologer. What happened there? What happened there? And business and energy work. How do you do that? How do you combine these two main threads in your work? Because they seem contradicting, but so how do you do that? What's your secret?
So if you look at my astrology chart, you understand they're not contradictory at all. I've got Saturn in Scorpio in the 10th. So Saturn in Scorpio, deeply kind of interested in what we say small O. So occult, esoteric arts. In the 10th, very, very hardworking, determined, focused. So very legal, essentially. So, and I'm a Sag rising, Sag moon. So that is naturally inclined to people who are lawyers. It's difficult tightrope, Kate, and I found it's taken me a long time to understand that actually the two aspects of myself are one. So when you are sat in an office on your laptop Monday morning and someone says to you, "What did you do this weekend?" I was like, "Oh, well, actually I was in a, psychic development circle. I was learning Reiki." Everyone laughs about it a little bit. You've got a crystal bracelet on. I used to have a couple of sprays in the office. Everyone would laugh about it. But what they didn't realize is that both skills are really transferable as well. So what I learned in my law degree, when I went to law school, what I learned when I was in infrastructure kind of projects, and I did lots of legal negotiations as well in my job, that actually they were deeply spiritual as well. So the two really intertwine, because what people didn't know is I was walking into investment panels, and over my papers, when I used them, I'd drawn Reiki symbols. I would ask for help from the divine, as I believed then, for help. I would occasionally pull a tarot card before a negotiation just to get a feeling of the energy of what is going on. Then when you set up a spiritual business, you think you've just got to be spiritual. And it took me about 4 years, and it's just a recent kind of just recently clicked with me that actually all the skills that I've learned in the corporate world transfer over into the spiritual world, because actually we are all running our own businesses. So we still need that strong framework. And although it would be amazing to trust everybody to run this new earth business, I've heard them described as, on trust, on love, on, it's all going to be fine. It's not. We still need structure. We still need contracts. We still need to make sure that we're being paid. We still need to make sure that we have structured our business to fit in the way that our government requires us to do, paying taxes. So it really has been a real tightrope for me to understand that it's shadow again, isn't it? Always like, can't touch the corporate career, that's my shadow. Oh, spiritual side's my golden shadow. And I suddenly realised actually it's the same, it's exactly the same thing. So it's been one of my biggest learnings to say, actually, what I have been taught in that corporate environment actually, again, was a stepping stone to allow me to have a business as an astrologer. Astrologically, but you're also advising intuitively and see scenarios that I've been in as well. So it's a real gift from Goddess that she's two aspects and then taught me how to move. It's not been with myself because I didn't want to go back in the corporate world, but actually I do. I thrive there.
Would you say that this is general tendency? Not long ago, always makes me giggle a bit when somebody mentions, "Oh, that person is so spiritual," and it's it's such nonsense because everyone is spiritual basically. But would you say this is kind of a tendency? I don't know how about you, Kirsty, what you think, but this is kind of a tendency that there is no division anymore. There's no like spiritual work and like day work, but it's like it's all merging and it's becoming a part, and we're not that it's changing, but we're becoming more aware of it, and it's becoming like our everyday lives, that there is no separation between like everything is spiritual. We're all having spiritual, every moment is spiritual, depending how you want to view it. But would you say this is the general tendency for actually everyone?
I think there are more closet spiritual people than we truly realize, but we also have to realize that spirituality doesn't have I'm going to start ranting. Spirituality does not have to be performative. Okay, so you can be incredibly committed on your pathway. You could be doing your invocations. I'm going to use my practice invocations to Goddess every morning, getting on the train, going into London, being a corporate lawyer. That is just as important as the work that we are doing as astrologers, spiritual entrepreneurs, healers. It's just as important because we need people embedded
Hallelujah!
within,
I love that you're
within
saying that.
those systems to make the change. How are we going to make the change if we're all, sounds awful, and I do this, if we're all sat around a fire pit drinking cacao, we are not going to change the system. We have to be in the system to disrupt the system. So actually, yeah, we can all have this experience, but the more that we are performative about it, for me, the less we are spiritual because we're looking for validation. True people just go in, do work very quietly. So it's like the Zen proverb, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. We shouldn't be labeling ourselves as, oh, I am a being that's massively ascending. Well, you're looking for someone else to agree with you at that point. Actually, go in, do the work. We've got to be like spiritual ninjas at the moment. Go in, do the work, disrupt the system. We're not going to disrupt the system by not acting. So, if you're in the corporate world, what practical grounds of action do you do every day to allow us to seed new earth? We can't do it through meditation alone, I'm afraid. We have to take action.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely agree with you. And this is it. It's having it's changing it from a frequency and energetic level, isn't it, from within. And I think, from my experience as well, running a business, I used to keep the two very, very separate, basically out of fear. And the more I've become authentically me in that 3D business with my colleagues, the more actually it's just gelled, and that they still think I'm kind of the crazy woman in the cupboard, but that's okay. But it's and I think you're right. There's so many people now that are curious, and it's like when we can stand and be authentic, I think that's it, isn't it? In ourselves, we don't have to preach on a soapbox or get your tarot cards out at lunchtime, which I have been guilty of doing sometimes. But we don't have to do that. It's just that frequency, isn't it? And then people come to you and say, and I must admit, I'm really seeing so many amazing people in these positions in what we would say the 3D matrix, and they're the people that are change makers as well, aren't they?
And I would often add, sometimes they don't even realise what they're doing. They are here to comment. I'm just thinking of a particular MP that I really or imps I really respect, just one, who's come in to do something. No, probably no idea that he is, incredibly. I don't want to use the word light worker, because that's the wrong word to describe him, but he's a masculine warrior. He's come in to do a really dirty job, and he's doing this amazing piece of work, but people don't say it like that. Oh, well, does he meditate? Does he do this? He's really making impact. So the greatest light workers often don't know that they're doing it. They're just driven to do something. And isn't that better, that they're driven to do something than, making a show of it? That's my big thing. So yeah, lots of ninjas and hidden good and hidden light going on.
Which is beautiful, isn't it? You have to think of like the service, the nurses and doctors, and I mean, gosh, there's angels walking amongst us more than we realise, aren't there? They're amazing. So yay. Okay, so moving on, we have lots of conjunctions and shifts and all sorts of things happening, Lexi, haven't we, over the next couple of weekends? Could you dive in a little bit, please, into the details?
This is where we get really excited about it.
Yes.
So today is Friday the 13th. This is the last day that Saturn is going to be in Pisces. Tomorrow, probably when we're asleep, actually, ladies, that she will go into Aries. So it's been kind of about 3 years of quite watery unpleasantness. Neptune has been there for the last 14 years as well. We've seen a lot of disillusion, foundations kind of not really sticking, but she goes into Saturn tomorrow. Hallelujah, because it really has been a very wet, very kind of grindy past 14 days. It's been just like, go on, move, go on, move. The energy's been very much like you're pregnant, you know that you're going to have a baby, but the labour hasn't quite started yet, and you're not quite sure when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. That's been the feeling. So it starts. She moves into Aries tomorrow, so we're going to see a real shift personally and collectively as well. We're going to find that warrior goddess starting to really rise up. Then we've got the new moon on the 17th, which is a new moon eclipse. Everybody's talking about it. You can't move on social media without seeing the year of the fire horse coming through. Hold that thought, because yes, eclipses are powerful and potent. Yes, fire horses are powerful and potent, but eclipses are always wild card energies. The eclipse portal is already open. Expect the unexpected and plan for the unexpected as well, because lots of wild cards can happen, lots of things can happen, and you may still find that you've got to face your own shadow. You could find that there is a lot more to shed Then on the 20th of February, which is a week today, we have the big event of the year, which is Saturn and Neptune meeting at 0 degrees of Aries. So Saturn and Neptune have met at 0 degrees of Aries. They do it quite regularly, about every 36 years or so. However, meeting at 0 degrees, which is the start of the astrological wheel, hasn't happened since Neolithic periods. I think it's 400 and something BC, 4,200 and something BC-ish off the top of my head. Can't remember the date. I mean, that's phenomenally long ago. So this is really, it's a huge conjunction. This is the start of what is to come. I really feel this is really opening the gateway into the age of Aquarius. It's opening this really powerful portal. It's anchoring in a fire energy as well. It's anchoring in change. Saturn and Neptune in Aries can be massively disruptive. It can be quite a warmongering energy. So when we feel that coming up in the collective, it's our choice. How are we going to stay? Are we going to stay in a place of peace and grounded action, or are we going to get whipped up into frenzy, essentially? So that is, it's huge. I can't quantify how big that is. Everyone seems to have missed it at the moment. I wonder after the new moon whether people kind of catch on. But it won't happen again in our lifetimes. It probably won't happen if we decide to reincarnate for the next 6 or 7 lifetimes. So, you know, this is an energy of how are you going to act that day, is setting the energy for not just the 3 years of Saturn cycle, the 40 years of the Neptune cycle. It's restarting everything again. So kind of almost a choice point time. So we get excited about that. Then on the 26th, we've got a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So you think you've done all the shedding? Mercury in Pisces going backwards just reminds us that there might be some more to come. Obviously, you need to have a look at your own chart to see where that falls. But I feel in the collective, it's going to be a time of murky waters, of a lot of emotion, a lot more stuff coming out, shall we say, and a lot of miscommunication. I feel that there's going to be a lot around the files. I'm sure we all know what I'm talking about coming out around then. And I can see some hairs being let loose to kind of distract us as well around there. And then we follow up on the 3rd of March, which is the full moon eclipse in Virgo as well. Virgo relates to health, healing, service work, and eclipse is a wild card. So I suspect there might be something coming out around health in that area or healing. And don't forget, eclipses set the tone for the next 6 months. So it's not necessarily an instantaneous energy. It could happen in a month or 2 or 3 months' time. But yeah, it's really powerful. And the energies really don't start to settle until about Beltane, which is the 1st of May. The first 6 months of 2026, that's the year we're in, yep, just checking, is huge. It's massive, kind of life-changing events, and we kind of slow down as we get to summer solstice, autumn equinox, a little bit slower. But the one thing I do want to mention is a Venus retrograde. It's not until October, November time. It's our last Venus retrograde in Scorpio that we will ever experience in our lifetimes. So again, really big. Venus in the sky actually draws a pentagram when she moves to what we call star points. Last one in Scorpio, that could again for us dredge up a lot of what is coming out now. So we just need to be focused on what's happening now, really enjoy it, anchoring in the frequencies, but have one eye on looking at, if you haven't done the work now, it's going to come back in that Venus retrograde as well. So yeah, really powerful. Could talk about it for hours, but we really are in incredibly potent times, and you know, we're seeing things we will never see again in our lifetimes with Saturn and Neptune. So yeah, big times.
What's the event you're hosting for that special time?
So back in the temples, the ancient sky watchers, the priestesses, would have always honored these great conjunctions with ritual and with ceremony. So myself, Maria Jones, who's my podcast co-host, we're going to be anchoring in these energies. So we are going to gather online, we're going to anchor in the frequencies, but also welcome in the new energies as well. So we're going to really redefine goddess for the Aquarian Aeon as well. We are going to reclaim the Aries archetype as a goddess as well, because I think every time I say to someone I'm an Aries, there's this sort of suck of air. She's a bit too hot to handle, but I am. But it's really about redefining that. So we're going to redefine the red goddess for the Aquarian Aeon. We are going to share a lot about the astrology. We're also going to do some planetary goddess embodiment as well, which is basically where we go into an altered state and we bring through the messages from the two planets, from Saturn and Neptune, to share with you. And then we're also going to do some rituals as well of literally planting new seeds for the new Aeon as well. So yeah, really powerful online event where anyone's welcome to join us to really anchor in those frequencies. I did write this in an email the other day. Next Saturday you can choose to watch the Six Nations, or you can choose to honour an event which will never ever happen again in our lifetime. So Six Nations, we can always get on catch up. The astrology, we can't get on catch up. We don't have a +1. So yeah, really, really powerful event. Really looking forward to it, because it's going to take us back to the way that we would have worked in ceremony for the thousands of years, but bringing it into the new way of living as well. So yeah, super excited about it.
And you mentioned your podcast buddy, and tell us more about your podcast, your Star Revelations. What is it about?
So Star Revelations is a podcast I host with Maria Jones. So Maria Jones teaches the Silver Spiral at Glastonbury Goddess Temple. We were born about 48 hours apart, so we're very similar, slightly different, very similar, both incredibly feral. But we look at the astrology and alchemy for the Aquarian Aeon. So we're really discussing a lot around goddess astrology, around the transits, but also around the magic and alchemy that we can do in order to move forward. So a lot of what we talk about at the moment is that there's a war on our consciousness. How do we retain our consciousness when others want to access that? So through, for example, our mobile phone screen, how many times have we just sat there giving our consciousness away to our algorithm? So we really work with the astrology, and we really guide people through practices to help them retain their consciousness, because our soul is our greatest asset. And if we can maintain that and really secure it, then we're on a really good way of ensuring that we birth what we want to do for New Earth, for the Aquarian Aeon. So it's a little bit edgy for people who are mildly offended. It's probably not the podcast for you, but we're really edgy. We're talking about the topic that a lot of people aren't talking about as well, and occasionally we have some really amazing guests as well. We've been really blessed to have Sarah Bertrand on, who is an amazing author. We've had Dave the Bard, who is just an amazing singer as well, singer-songwriter, and we've had Mark Nenglam on as well, who is just the most intelligent magician I have ever met. So yeah, I mean, you're welcome to have a listen on Substack, but we're really trying to leave a legacy so that when we're at the turn of the next Aeon, that if people can still listen to the podcast, they can hear how we were trying to structure it and tell us if we managed it. Who knows?
Wow, sounds amazing. It really does, and much more than a podcast. It's an activation, and your event sounds amazing. I'm sold. I'm coming, if that's okay, for the Greek. That sounds fabulous, and it's so interesting. It is, because I think you're the first person I've really heard that's talked into the importance of it. As you say, the 17th is of course important, but yeah, this is big stuff. So wow, thank you. We'll put all the details in the show notes so that people can come and join you and check out your amazing podcast as well. So here's a a question, which again, I have got all the big questions here. Okay, Morgana, if you had one piece of advice for us all as humanity moving
What?
through this year, what would it be, please?
Just one piece of advice.
Just one piece. Well, as
Just one
many
piece.
pieces,
Okay,
as
so let's make
many
it
as
a
you
really,
can
really
share.
good one. So my piece of advice for us all is stop looking outside yourself for the answers. Stop being so dependent on someone telling you what to do next, whether it's in life or spiritually. Drop into a place of stillness. Drop into your heart. Find that inner gnosis, the golden shadow that's hidden within. We would call it the anchoring of starfire within our soul. So the seed of the star that we carry within ourselves, the aspect of goddess. Drop into it and go into it and find the answers for yourself. I think we're very much in a place where the age of the guru is dead. We need to become our own guru, and then we need to be sharing essentially, not necessarily teaching. It's about sharing and assisting and collaborating. So yeah, no more looking outside yourself for answers. You've got them all. Is that big enough?
It's fantastic. And
That is
speaking of
beautiful.
looking
Thank you.
inside, speaking of looking inside, Morgana, and your path, because we don't have enough time. Hopefully, you're gonna come back and tell us more. But speaking about your, journey, your transformation, we love that question. We ask every. Okay, this is our standard question. Okay, that we absolutely love. Your most magical, angelical experience that you had that effect on your life. Something that comes to you, sprinkle some magic on us. Something that you remember, from your own life, from your own journey, from your personal, experience, is something the most magical that really had that effect on you.
So slightly off the wall, and it's actually a recent experience which really confirmed to me that I was on the right path. So I recently went for a trip into London to Watkins Books because I wanted to get some books, and then to the British Museum. And cut a long story short, I thought it was one of my guides sending me on a kind of wild goose chase, and I actually realized it was the other guide. They kind of like worked in collaboration together to get me to certain places. The most profound experience I had was walking into the Egyptian room, going to a particular mummy that I knew I had to connect with. And the first thing that this mummy said to me was, so busy in here, I can't hear myself think. And I just went, what? Sorry, I'm having a moment here. And then I had this most beautiful conversation with a mummy who had been a priestess, and she had the goddess Nut all over her sarcophagus. So Nut is the goddess of the stars. And when we talk about Arianrod, who is the Celtic goddess of the stars, we regard Nut, Tiamat, Arianrod, the cosmic mother. And she just said to me, take pictures of Nut on my sarcophagus, because from that you are going to understand and activate the kind of gnosis that you've hidden since Egyptian times. And I was just like, oh, it was incredibly powerful, completely unexpected. It's a really recent experience, but that for me was just that kind of utter confirmation that I was absolutely on the right path, that a goddess of astrology of the stars was speaking to me in the middle of a museum. Good. And it was really busy. And to have that moment of really profound connection was just, I'm still mind blown from that day. And I had to stagger around to Russell Square and have a coffee in the gardens, because it was really, really profound. And from all the work that I do with some of my guides as well, it was just like, okay, you're on the right path. Now you move forward, and now everything that you're doing is having this huge transformative effect. So yeah, very recent. I'm still processing it, still integrating it, but it was a heck of an experience to have on a Friday afternoon after lunch. That's all I can say.
Oh my goodness, I love that so much. And yeah, I guess all the more profound because of the unexpected nature of it. And wow, thank you for sharing that magic. And yeah, what a validation. Wow, I feel like we could talk for so much more. I feel we're just really scratch the surface of your magic. So thank you so much for sharing a tiny bit of your magic with all of our beautiful viewers and with Kate. And how can people get in touch with you, Morgana? What's the best way for people to connect?
This way is probably Instagram, so at Morgana Sophia Astrologer. You can find me on Facebook as well, and my website is morganasophia.com. So the best places to find me.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we're just so excited to get this episode broadcast, basically, because there's so much juicy knowledge that people can use, and it's just beautiful to have that support and that real integrity and honesty about the subject as well. It's just so refreshing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
It's been a pleasure. Oh, thank you. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe or like and all the things, and it just allows us to keep inviting beautiful guests like Morgana back. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Morgana.
Bye.